back to the Frontier Freedom Hour with Jeff Hunt, sponsored by Centennial Institute at Colorado Christian University. Here's Jeff Hunt.
All right, so this bill passed, I believe, in the legislature 2021, has to do with, it's titled Regulation 28, and it's going to get into these new restrictions and regulations placed upon businesses, buildings. It's about 8,000 buildings in Colorado, 50,000 square feet or more. It's requiring them to reduce greenhouse gas reduction by 7% by 2026, 20% by 2030. Okay? So it sounds good, right? Like we're reducing pollution, which nobody disagrees with. Even the headline here from the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, Colorado establishes new standards for large buildings to use less energy, reduce costs for owners and tenants. So not only are we going to reduce the pollution, everybody's going to save money. All right, let me give you a little helpful tip here. My guest, Senator Kevin Lundberg, will help, I believe, affirm this. Anytime the government is selling something that seems too good to be true, it is always too good to be true, okay? This is a special interest bill written by environmentalists that wants you to basically burn wood to stay warm and eat crickets to feed yourself. They definitely don't want you to have a family. That's horrible. You know, you can see that in how they're even aligning the Denver streets right now. How dare you have a car and take your kids to basketball practice? They want you to walk everywhere. They don't want you to have any children. They want you to eat crickets. They want you to live in the dark ages. Okay? Those people wrote this bill. Why? Because they're driving Colorado towards this kind of energy dark ages where we've shed off the oppressive oil and gas industry, and coal is going away, and we're going to rely entirely on the wind and sunshine to help us. Now, Jared Polis has figured out that this is a failing plan. So now you watch him, he's starting to talk geothermal, and we'll get into this in a little bit later. By the way, the effort of geothermal, which is bringing heat out of the ground up to heat water and to turn a turbine to generate electricity, is essentially no different than fracking. The actual process of going down to get heat is no different. So welcome back to fracking. It's just under different terms, and we'll call it something different. All right, so all this is going to do is drive up people's costs, because now these buildings that are 100 years old, 50 years old, 5 years old, have to redo windows, have to add insulation, have to redo their entire energy plans, have to bring in different resources, like you can't use natural gas anymore. All of this is going to happen to any building over 50,000. And if you think this is just staying with big buildings, you clearly don't know leftist Marxists. They don't ever stop. This is just a half step towards what they ultimately want to achieve. Okay, so helping me figure all this out, Senator Kevin Lundberg, former member of the Colorado House of Representatives and Colorado Senate, where he sits now on the board of Colorado Christian University. Senator Lundberg, you were just saying you noticed something that public buildings maybe don't have to abide by this. Is that right?
Well, here's the way the law reads, and I didn't read this in the press release that the Department of Health put out, proclaiming what a great cost saving this is, and we'll get back to that in a minute. But for public buildings, these rules apply, but only when they do any renovations of a substantial nature to the building. So they get a free pass until they're in a construction phase anyway, but everybody else is going to have to comply. And if they can't comply, it's anybody's guess exactly what they're going to do. But I know that the Colorado Apartment Owners Association has voiced some strong opposition to this, because a lot of their buildings, they can't comply. It's not cost effective. And what it'll do is it'll just cause those buildings to be abandoned, to not be used anymore. But yeah, if you're the government, and you've got a big building, we'll let that go until you put I think it's a $500,000 renovation in place or more, which means they just write that in, and guess who does pay for that? The taxpayer. So they'll always have the money to build it, but the rest of us will not. And, we have a housing crisis in this country and in this state. And to go to the big apartment buildings and say, hey, you've got to dance to this tune or you're out of business. Well, that's just totally contrary to what public policy ought to be. And it goes on and on. Now, there is one other exception I wanted to point out, and that
is it Jared Polis's? Is it Jared Polis's 50,000 square foot house? Does that have an exemption?
Well, not to my knowledge yet, but the other exception is for now blew right out of my brain here. Manufacturing. Yeah, manufacturing buildings that are more than 50%. If the building more than 50% of that building is used for manufacturing, they are exempt. However, and I don't have a lot of information. Maybe we ought to have a follow-up program on this one. But just a couple of days ago, I was told that the same health department that brought you Rule 28 here is working on another plan to go after the manufacturers because they just use too much power, period. And there are several large businesses in Colorado that will be out of business once that rule goes into place. So everybody's caught in the net somewhere, unless, of course, you're growing pot, and then you're free on it, I guess.
So let's walk through what this is going to do. This is important because this is how it affects everybody, okay? Like I mentioned in the first segment, these building owners just don't absorb costs. It's not like they have giant piles of money that they can just put towards this type of stuff. This is going to be passed on to the people that utilize the building, all right? So if, let's say, the bottom floor of a big 50,000 square foot office building, you have a Panera Bread. Well, now Panera Bread has to pay more money to deal with these new retrofits, these environmental retrofits that are going to come through. And Panera Bread doesn't just absorb the cost. They're going to pass that on. So your sandwich from Panera Bread is now going to cost more, okay? Your attorney, let's say you have an attorney that rents an office space. Well, now he's being charged more because the building owner has to retrofit to fit all these Green New Deal type of stuff, this effort to bring down, greenhouse gases. So he's got to pay more in his lease. He's going to charge you more because now he has to pay more. This is what the left, and I'm going to get worked up on this, Senator Lundberg. This is what the left just fails to recognize, okay? This is why we can't stop this inflation thing. And Senator, I know people that are now working 2 or 3 jobs just to be able to afford the same lifestyle standard they had 10 years ago. And a lot of this baloney that people are facing, this challenge, just barely making ends meet type of situation that many people are finding themselves in, are because of special interest groups pushing these stupid agendas onto people. Did you vote for this? Did you think that this was what's going to happen to you when you elected these people into our legislature last year, that they were going to drive up every aspect of cost in your life? Probably not. But this is what the left does. They drive these regulations, these mandates upon you, and every aspect of your life gets more expensive. You have to work harder. Does it affect them? Not really, because the people paying their bills are these special interest groups. They're delivery boys and girls for these special interest groups. So that's what gets me angry, is that all of these 8,000 buildings, Senator Lundberg, are now going to be driving up costs for everybody in the state of Colorado. And it had nothing to do with them. They didn't choose it. It's these lawmakers down there that did this.
Yeah, well, and if anybody needs reminding of this, every time you show up at a gas pump, gas is about $1 more or more, maybe $1.50 more than it was a year and a half ago, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
That's just due to regulations. It has nothing to do with the actual supply or even capacity to create the gas, except they're going after that too. There's a big refinery in Denver that these same folks. This is driven through what's called the Air Quality Control Commission, which is a part of the Colorado Department of Health and Environment, or Public Health and Environment, they call it, CDPHE for short. And this commission is just driving every aspect of our lives. And as I say, you need to go no further than the next time you try to fill up your gas tank. And maybe it cost $40 a year ago, and now it's going to cost $60, $70. Why? Well, this is the only reason why. Because of all of these insane policies, not just here in Colorado, but it seems to be focused here in Colorado because the governor and the legislature we're kind of the petri dish for the left.
Yes, every possible unconstitutional law out there. Jack Phillips isn't an accident. We're some bizarre Frankenstein state. All right, we're up against a commercial break. Talking with Senator Kevin Lundberg, former member of the House of Representatives and former member of the Colorado Senate. When we come back, we're going to continue this conversation. You didn't hear about it, and we're going to talk about why the media is hiding this. Because I can only really find one article about this Regulation 29. It's going to affect all of you. We'll be right back after these messages.